All right, so you've started a career in cybersecurity. Sounds pretty easy, right? Or maybe you feel stuck, looking at an impossible mountain to climb with no clue of how to find your footing. But fortunately, you've stumbled across Scaling the Wall, a podcast that breaks down the cybersecurity journey into manageable steps. I'm your host, Will Brooks. In each episode, I'll be your guide as we interact with others who are living and breathing cybersecurity every single day. We'll hear their stories, learn from their experiences, and gather those golden nuggets of wisdom they've picked up along the way. No jargon, no hype, just real talk about what it takes to build a successful career in this exciting field from those who have paved the way. So grab your gear and get ready to climb as we scale the wall of cybersecurity together. Reed.
Yeah.
Welcome to my studio.
It's lovely. I love the artwork.
You guys really have set me with a nice budget at FifthWall for a really nice studio, as you can see. But I wanted to have a sit-down conversation while we're here in person. Again, as we said the last time, it doesn't happen nearly enough. But one of the things we really want to bring into the conversation is the cyber insurance component of all of this. Because when you're at a tech conference, when you're at a cybersecurity conference, it gets really exciting around the gadgets, the tools, the shiny toys. We talk about shiny toy syndrome all the time. But what I want to hear from you is I had a good conversation with Cole this morning about how this Yukon tool we're launching is bringing in all these different angles, saying, hey, we want to make cyber insurance, cybersecurity, carrier access, all kind of a conglomerate of goodness and wonderful things. But the way we're doing that is you do have this insurance component. So I guess first question is how is insurance playing into this? What are you excited about seeing where the insurance industry is headed? Reflect a little bit back on 3 years ago when we first went to IT.
Oh, yeah.
And all that good stuff.
Well, I guess a good place to start would be from the beginning a little bit, do some reflection. So, I think FifthWall has always had that vision to challenge the process, challenge and disrupt, right? Mm-hmm. And part of that has been, stayed the same, but a lot of it has been curated as we've gotten further into different ways of going about what it is that we've been trying to do. So, for example, moving from working primarily with agents to then working with MSPs, and then better understanding the channel and better understanding what was actually working and not working. All of that flowed into what we're building with Yukon. So on the cyber insurance side, I'm really excited about what we know, that has been the most challenging that we can handle with this technology. I feel really confident on how we can actually disrupt that. And let me explain what I mean. So with most professional services, it's very relational driven, right? It requires a lot of consultation. It requires trust. It requires a different level of management type of conversation. With cyber insurance, it's been separated and bifurcated among multiple constituents, right? You've got a lot of folks that have a lot of folks that have different roles in the process.
Yeah.
And so one main thesis of what we want to do and what we're doing is aligning all those constituents so we can now be looking at and talking about the same thing at the same time, right? Rather than a consumer that has to be talking to their agent on one side, but then talking to their MSP and their cyber advisor on another, and then getting different requirements coming down from the carrier, so on and so forth. So the insurance piece of this, it really lives throughout everything we're building, because even from the front end to what we're doing in the channel, we're breaking down a lot of barriers and we're creating a lot of disruption by creating a different flow to the process.
Sure. So specific to the insurance component though, and I think that's almost thinking of when I got started at FifthWall, it was Reed was the guy who had insurance policies on his nightstand, right? Like that was your praise. Obviously, a lot of evolution and growth has happened.
For sure. I mean, probably done great work.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot more from the space. But like for me, as the guy who kind of created his LinkedIn persona, my mindset is cyber insurance guy with a heavy focus on cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So I can talk a lot about the techie nerdy stuff, but I know for a lot of people who might listen to this, they're like, why should I care about cyber insurance as an MSP? And how is this, like, what is this connection? What are these things that are happening?
I mean, what cyber insurance has turned into is almost like a compliance-driven process, right, for MSPs. But the process itself doesn't work with them. It's not conducive. It's pretty abrasive.
Yeah.
It's time-consuming. It derails a lot. And the timing of all these expectations of carriers of what needs to be in place and when on renewal or just trying to get new policies.
And renewals are pretty annoying.
They can't
right
be.
now.
Yeah. And I think
How's it helping that?
well, in MSPs right now, because they're in that position, they don't have a lot of transparency, right? So where it helps MSPs is being able to understand more about what's actually going on behind the curtain and then leveraging that, being able to be proactive rather than reactive is a big difference. So let's talk about renewals, right?
Yeah.
You're an MSP and you've got a number of clients that have cyber. Well, that's great. Okay. But you're always, as the MSP, going to be the victim of a process that you really don't have any insight or control over. Oh, wait, we need a new application. We have new requirements, whatever it may be for that particular client. And there's really no validation of, the what and why.
Sure.
We can break down all those barriers. We can actually have all that information very transparent and understood to the MSP well in advance. And then when it comes to the process itself, I'd love for applications to be a thing of the past.
That'd be very nice. But speaking of applications, the whole process, all that good stuff, one of the things that we've talked about is kind of realigning the MSP and the agent relationship in a way that says, I think right now, if you peruse anything like MSP Reddit or you go into MSP forums or anything like that, you're going to see some suspicion from MSPs around carriers saying, hey, they're starting their own MSPs, their own MSSP services, they're offering MDR, they're trying to get my clients to move away from my services. Then you have agents who right now they're kind of stuck in the middle of saying, well, I have MSPs who I refer business to, but now I have this easier option of a carrier saying, hey, just get my controls and you can get a policy really easily. Do agents fit into what we're doing?
Absolutely. So what you spoke to are just these individual silos, right? You have a carrier that cares about their book of business and they want to implement these security controls and have this intellectual property for this security. You've got an agent that has their own prerogative of where they want to place business and why. So when I say transparency, it's breaking down all of those barriers.
Yeah.
Being able to see it all, right? And for agents, there's a very small percentage of agents right now that, I think it would be nice to say that they know a lot about cyber, but the reality is a very small few actually are very competent, meaning there's a level of comfort in the conversation, understanding of the moving parts from a security perspective and a risk evaluation perspective. And the line of business for them is just not enough of a motivator for them to change. So through UConn, we can actually allow any agent that really wants to be involved but doesn't have the ability or maybe the time to really commit and have a deep understanding. And the dream here is the tool can showcase a lot, can do a lot, and the agent can still play that facilitative role.
Sure.
And then along that journey, FifthWall really wants to be able to continue to work through agents and with agents, and we can start to educate and certify on that side as well. So we really want to build out a way for cyber as a whole can be more widely adopted, but also more widely understood.
That's something that I know I'm really excited about, just with the general trajectory of this whole thing. When I started at FifthWall, I was on the agency side. I'm a nerd, so I was like, I want to be on the MSP side. And now it's almost like a remarrying of the two. It's for so long we've been the agency channel and the MSP channel. They have to function in our two separate roles and worlds and all that kind of stuff. But really, where I see this path that broke off this way, it's now kind of converging back in a way that's going to be much more cohesive, and it's going to make writing cyber insurance way easier. It's going to make helping clients understand their financial risks way better, way clearer, and it's all in real time. So it's super cool.
And it's organized. I think that's the one piece is because you've got, back to the earlier part of the conversation, where you have different constituents in the same process.
Who are all the constituents?
You've got
here are the different parties.
So it breaks down to almost being a supply chain issue, right? If I think of it this way. So you've got at the very, very top, you've got the insurance, right? You've got the underwriters, the reinsurers, those that actually care about the risk that they're going to be taking on.
Yeah. The organized gambler.
The well-placed gambling. And they then have to go through multiple degrees of separation. to get those answers, okay, they have to go through sometimes a wholesaler, right? They got to go through the agent, the agency, then they got to go to the end client, typically CFO, whatever it may be. And then ultimately that CFO goes, I don't know how to answer these questions, so it's going to go to IT. It's going to go to the internal or external. And that process through all of those hands is this linear path. Mm-hmm. So what you talked about was a circle, which is exactly where this has been heading this whole time. It's that if we can sit in the middle of that, we can actually turn that to be from a linear path to now cyclical. It's a circle. And that way everyone can be communicating in real time and there's a better understanding. And carriers, back to your earlier comment, that legitimately they're trying to better understand how they can control risk, right? So that, yes, obviously there's interest for them to be selling security services.
Sure.
I'm not about that at all, but I understand why. I understand why that's attractive to them. Right now they don't have a way to validate and they don't have a way to change the risk posture of the clients that are on their books, right?
Yeah.
In this model, there's full transparency across the board. So you want to create change? Let us know the change you want to create. We'll be able to showcase that. We'll be able to align folks to it. They can understand exactly how to go to that change, working with the right advisor. And now it's kind of one of those 1 + 1 = 3. Wow. Everybody's winning.
Yeah. Yeah. I often liken it to when you have that linear path, you have a lot of opportunity for mistake.
For sure.
And you're playing a really long game of telephone, right? And it has to go back and forth until all the security controls are right. So you run into a lot of opportunities to say, oh, well, we need this thing, we need this thing, we need this thing. And eventually gets down to the CFO or whoever. Yep. And they have to now communicate this to their MSG, to the IT. And it's like, I don't know what any of these things mean to begin with. So what do I do? Like, there are times where we've had to write business before and the underwriter comes back and says, well, we need you to add these additional things, right? Before we can bind coverage. So you run into all those issues and when everybody has kind of a look into what's going on, it eliminates, you brought it up before, I would love to see a day without applications. You brought it up, you're saying, hey, if everyone has a window in, why do you need an application anymore?
Now you have a real-time understanding of the reality of the picture. And, you know, if you look at the other lines in insurance, they've all kind of found a way to do validation through assessment, through inspection, whatever it is, right? And they're not dealing with a type of volatility that cyber presents. So there's, in my opinion, really only one way that you're going to be able to do that, and that's with full participation from all the constituents.
I think what excites me is it's thinking bigger. If you remember back when we first hypothesized the idea of IBEX, right?
Yeah.
And there was this thing where every MSP comes up to me on a regular basis now and says, oh, you know, it'd be so cool if you could, you know, quantify how much my client would save on insurance if I sold them this security, right? That was the promise of IBEX, right? And as we began to better understand where the heck carriers were going in the industry, the promise of IBEX actually was unrealistic because you brought up before all these different constituents, and then you take it a step further. You say every single one of those people on the carrier level, every carrier is thinking independently.
Exactly.
They're not going to offer, you can't blanket a discount on 50 companies that think independently, you know, so they're all going to have their own standards. And because of that, the concept of IBEX is like, okay, maybe it's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
When in reality, what UConn is showing, and I think what really excites me about the whole thing is it's thinking so much bigger. It's saying this is not about how much you might save on a control. Like security is pretty expensive. It's not going to destroy your business, but it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking at some of these more crucial controls, say like MDR, right? And say it costs you, you know, $20,000 to roll it out for the year or whatever. Most people who are going to get an insurance policy, they're probably not going to save $20,000 off their policy from adding MBR. Like it's not going to be a lot.
It's not a one-to-one. And I think part of this too is that we're now looking at this with a completely different approach than we were before. Now we're looking at it more as a marketplace, right? And what we want to do is create that level of transparency, but then we're going to create a new level of demand.
Yeah.
Right. And that demand is with better insights and understanding, you put that power back into the hands of the consumer. Right? Where right now it's a carrier or a company saying, if you do this, I'll do that. Right? And it's only a few rules that people have the ability to choose from.
Yeah.
Right. And in this world, what I'd love to see is that we have the ability to quantify risk, validate it, and then have over 58 carriers look at that and go, wait a minute, I would love that. How do I get that business?
Yeah.
Right. I see that risk improving. I would love that for my book.
Yeah.
Great. Now we're talking, and now we don't have to do that quid pro quo.
Yeah.
It creates a more real-time market.
And just how cool to look at it and say, hey, instead of, oh yeah, if you get this MDR solution for $20K, it'll save you $5,000 on your policy.
Yeah.
How about you get 20? It might do that, but how about you get this $20,000 MDR solution, and when you have a security incident 6 months down the road, you're not losing $4.5 million.
Right.
Like, it's thinking bigger. It's looking at the full picture, like you said, as opposed to this point in time, immediate cost savings. And I think it opens up perspective to a whole new world of risk. So, Reed, any other final thoughts on the insurance game? What we're going through, what you're seeing? I guess actually that's a dumb question. My specific question is, in the next 3 months, as Yukon goes from early access to general release, what are you most excited about?
So what I'm most excited about is, because we're in an early access program, we're going to be at this fun period where the market is going to build the products, right? And we talked about multiple constituents, right? And we've been able to realize conceptually what this should look like. But we're only going to take it so far on our own logic and our own thinking, our own rationale, right? We want to start working with those that are be using it, and getting that feedback, fine tuning the tool. And I'm just really excited to see, obviously I have some assumptions that I'm hoping for, right? We talked about this, and there's some big assumptions. Reality is we don't know. We have a hypothesis on what we hope to occur. And we already have really good feedback. I mean, even just conceptually within data, we're getting amazing feedback, which is just awesome. But these next three months are just going to be, for us foundationally, we have a lot of work to do to prepare. But then also as we're just going out and having real candid conversations for people to tell us more about what it is that needs to exist to better this process. That's wild. That's exciting.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's be high energy.
Lots of energy, lots of caffeine required.
Scaling the Wall is brought to you by FifthWall Solutions, a cyber insurance wholesaler wholly focused on bridging the gap between cyber insurance and cybersecurity, making it more affordable, accessible, and understandable. If you're an MSP tired of last-minute insurance apps from your clients, or an agent looking for an easier way to write good coverage, make your way over to fifthwallsolutions.com to learn more about what it means to partner. This podcast is written and produced by me, Will Brooks. Find me on LinkedIn. There are a lot of memes to be found, and I hope you'll tune in next time as we continue to scale the wall of cybersecurity together.